wire in the way. We can focus on the face. What's behind me? Boards, rubbish, trash. Okay. Dry up twice, dry up 3 times. It's been a long time since I made a video, and I do apologise. I've been having a bit of a burnout, so I've had a bit of a rest, and I've been thinking about things. I thought I'd like to do a bit more vlogging, so I'm back here having had a break. Also been waiting for the sunshine and the spring and the warm weather, so it's all pretty. And I'm still waiting. We've had an awful lot of rain, it's been very chilly. I've had 1 or 2 days where it's been warm, but it's, you know, I've kind of been busy on those days as well. Got a lot to catch up on. So I've done a lot since I last spoke to you. I've rebuilt my fence, I've put a gate in, I've been doing the gardening, of course, and I've still got to get rid of my compost heap, which was a real learning curve when it comes to compost heaps. I've been putting weeds in it, and last year everything that I put in a tub that came out of that compost heap grew everything. It grew nettles, it grew dandelions. There was just so much weed in there that I thought I've got to just get rid of it all. And I thought I would take the big compost heap out of my garden, maybe put something smaller in. So I'm going to have to just get rid of all the soil in there and start again, and chalk that down to experience. The other thing I did was I mended the fence. The fence was so depressing. It really did just depress me, really. It was knackered, it was old, it was broken, it was bayed out and blocking the road. It was all rotten at the bottom, so it was just spilling soil all over the road as well. So I felt a bit embarrassed about it. So I took that out and I put a couple of new fence pieces in, which gave me an opportunity to make a little gate and a bit of trellis, which put a little bit more light in my garden and hopefully will help the grass to grow because it's very bald. And so that's really made a difference. I really like it felt very cooped up. I was very claustrophobic and it felt very enclosed, and I couldn't speak to anyone and I couldn't see anyone, and I could hear people talking, but I couldn't participate in the conversation without standing, you know, trying to look over a 6-foot fence, and it just didn't work for me. So I kind of thought I need to open it out a bit, just to be a bit more sociable. And although there's not many people go past, it is still quite a private garden, but it just feels like I can make eye contact with people, or I can step out the gate and chat to my neighbours, and it's much better. I'm much happier with that. And so I've been doing that, very busy, not really enough time to film and edit, and I got a bit burnt out with all that, so I thought I'd just get on with it, to be honest. But the last time I spoke to you, I said I was going to make some sauerkraut. Well, I've been looking into the benefits of sauerkraut, and it's absolutely amazing stuff. To be honest, I made some which was a bit of an experiment, and it went slightly wrong. I think I put too much salt in it, so I thought I'd have a go at making it before I showed you how to do it. Now, if you go online, you find a Polish recipe for sauerkraut all over the place. This is not that sauerkraut, that's called kapusta or something. And it's more of a pickled cabbage, with a slight bit of fermentation going on, but not really. I think you only ferment it for 3 days or something. This is not that kind of sauerkraut. This is German sauerkraut. Now, German sauerkraut is a proper fermented food, and it's fermented the way I'm going to make it, in its own juice. So you're not adding a brine to it, you're just extracting the juice from the cabbage. It's extremely good for you, and from what I hear, you can buy sauerkraut in the shop, but it's been pasteurised. And when it's pasteurised, it kills all the good healthy bacteria. Now the thing about fermented food is that they're full of probiotics. It's also stacked with loads of vitamins like vitamin K and vitamin C and iron and folate and a whole list of vitamins. And because of the probiotic, it helps the body absorb that into the gut. When you buy it in a shop, they've pasteurised it, and that is killing off the healthy probiotic bacteria. Not only that, but I had a look for it the other day, and I bought some sauerkraut off the shelf, and it wasn't sauerkraut, it was pickled cabbage, and it was quite expensive for a little jar, and it wasn't that. And then again the other day, I saw an organic, naturally fermented sauerkraut, and it was a jar that big, and it was £4.50, and I thought, I'm not paying £4.50 for this. The sauerkraut that I'm going to make, the cabbage cost me 30p. It's not a very big cabbage yet, they're not quite large yet, so I've already put one away, and that's a bit of salt and some cabbage, and that will probably make 2 jars. I made it last time and I made 2 jars, and I waited 2 weeks for it, and then I ate the 2 jars in about 3 days. So what I've done is I put a little bit on Sunday, and now is Wednesday, and then I thought I'm going to put another one away, and then I can have at least 4 jars of the stuff, and I can give a jar away. My mum wants some, she's German, she wants some nice sauerkraut, and I can eat as much as I like, and I think I just have to keep making it, because you eat it, it's delicious, you know it's full of vitamins, you know that it's really good for you. And it tastes unlike anything you've tried before, so I definitely would recommend you to try it. If you like healthy crunchy cabbage, then you're going to love sauerkraut, and as I say, it's extremely beneficial for you. It has a lot of uses for your gut bacteria. Your gut bacteria fends off infection and diseases, so it's great for your immune system. It helps you absorb the vitamins. Am I selling this enough? It is delicious, and it is packed full of beneficial foods for your body. So I'm going to show you how I make naturally fermented German sauerkraut. Okay, so I've just washed my hands, and that's the important thing about this, is you've got to keep your hands clean and wash everything, make sure it's very clean, so that things don't grow moulds. So I've got here a large Kilner type jar. I think that's a 2 litre. You can make it in one of these. This is often recommended, but I'll just show you this that I bought as well. Now I bought this in a charity shop for £3, and it's an old casserole dish. You always find them in charity shops. It's great because it has the little holes in the lid, and it's a good solid jar. You can buy a sauerkraut jar online, which is a large jar with a weight in it. They cost about £40. This was £3. I went for this one because it was slightly taller, which meant that the liquid was slightly higher on the cabbage. But I'm going to show you today how to make it in this jar. I've also cleaned this little jar, which I'm going to fill with water and use as a weight. If I can get that out of there. That's a bit tricky to get that out of there. So I might find something else that I can put on top as a weight to weigh the cabbage down. So start by washing your jar very well in hot water, and sterilise it if you like. You can do it, I just wash mine in hot water. You want to wash your cabbage, I've got this cabbage, it's not that large. The season just gives us this at the moment. Obviously, the larger the cabbage, the more salt you want to add. Take the outside leaves off and then you want to chop it finely. So you can strip the outer leaves off. Now some people say to keep the outer leaves, and I've already stripped the outer leaf off this one, but it didn't fit my jar, so I left it for another time. Some people say keep this leaf and you can weigh down the cabbage with the cabbage leaf on top of it. When I tried it, it was the cabbage leaf on top that started to grow mould, little white specks of mould on there. So I wouldn't really recommend that. But if you want, you can keep the cabbage leaf and put that on top. You want a very sharp knife and you want some rock salt. I've got rock salt, you could use sea salt, but you don't want to use table salt. I don't think table salt gives a good result, and it's obviously much healthier to use sea salt. So I have some rock salt here. Now I'm going to put a rough guesstimate of 2 tablespoons in with my cabbage. This is rock salt, so 2 tablespoons is quite a lot of salt. I like salty food, I've got to admit. Maybe you want to use a little bit less if it's rock salt. Depends on the size of your cabbage. If you've got a large cabbage, you might want to use about 3 tablespoons. Some people weigh it and say you have to have 0.025% of the weight of the cabbage in salt. I'm not very good at maths. I'm going to chuck 2 tablespoons in. It's good for me. And what you can actually do is, as you're mushing the cabbage, have a lick of your fingers and see if it's too salty for you or whether it's not salty enough. So I'm of the guesstimate school. So what you want to do is take the heart of the cabbage out and then finely chop the leaves. I've got a very good bread knife here that hopefully will make an easy job of it. So the bit in the middle, it doesn't really, you want a nice fine mush. Yeah, easy job of it. Yeah, so cut the heart of the cabbage out. I may need to stand up to do this. I'm just going to cut around. Yeah, I'll go that way. Of course it has to go and be awkward. And there's a bit in the middle there. So, you can eat this at your own pleasure. I'll save that one for later. I do not want that. I'm not professional at all. There's a little bit there, but I'll cut that out later. It tastes like chewing. I should have not done that. Okay. So the other thing you want is a very large bowl. This is the largest bowl I've got. It kind of limits how many cabbages I can do at once, or how big a cabbage. When I chop this cabbage, it will probably come to the top, but by the time it's mulched a bit, it will sort of settle and it will fill half the bowl. So depending on how big your cabbage is, you might want to add a little bit at a time when you can get it all in there. I'm going to have to take some of this off this chopping board. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I finely chop the cabbage. Very sharp serrated knife, and I want to chop it as thin as possible. Obviously the smaller you chop it, the easier it is for the brine to act on it and the salt to get in there. So I'm just going to keep it small. And then add it to the bowl slowly until it's all chopped. So if I come across any cabbage hearts, I'll just take that out because you want the fine shredded leaves. So I've now got a fairly full bowl of cabbage. As I say, it was quite a small cabbage. This is a little less than the cabbage I did on Sunday. I'm going to put a little bit of less salt in it. I think about 2.5 teaspoons was what I used on Sunday. I'm going to use 2 teaspoons, level teaspoons this time. About that, I'm going to sprinkle that in. If you're watching your sodium in the diet, I really would be careful with sauerkrauts, but it is the salt that preserves the food and stops the bacteria growing. So the salt is a very good, so salt is what you need really to get the whole fermentation going. And it stops the nasty moulds and bacteria from growing, so don't worry about the salt too much. So when you have placed that in a bowl, you want to kind of just mix it in a little. You can kind of crush your cabbage. The best thing to do at this point is just make sure the salt is mixed in, but leave it a little while for it to start extracting the juice. So don't worry too much at this stage about making a brine. That's going to happen in about 20 minutes. So just mix it through and then leave the salt to do the work. So I will leave that 20 minutes, half an hour, 10 minutes if I'm limited for time, until it starts getting a little bit sort of saturated and the liquid starts to come out and react with the salt from the cabbage. So while I do that, I may as well show you a little tour of the garden. I was hoping the sun would come out, but it's gone in again. But if you're not interested in that, I'll leave a timestamp and we can come back to this later. So this is the new fence I've put in. I kind of had to blend it with a bit of old fence. It's all mismatched. I kind of like it, it's a natural wood over there. I put some stepping stones down, but my grass is not growing. It was too shady, so I'm hoping the trellis just gives it a bit more light, helps the grass to grow. I've got the cherry blossoms coming out. It's a bit of a sick tree, unfortunately. And we've got loads of forget-me-nots coming up. I love forget-me-nots. I started with about 2 in a pot and now they are everywhere. They're beautiful. Got the raspberry canes are going for it there. So they're a bit problematic, so I put them on this arch. Otherwise they tend to flop all over the garden. And the bees should be going crazy for that, but we're having a very cold time. I've hardly seen any bees at all. Just waiting for the nice weather. And then this is gentian, which is quite a delicate little flower. And chives are flowering. Salvia's going to flower any day now. And this is what I've been saving for ages because I'm going to sort this corner of the garden out. As you can see, my woodshed. As you can see, my woodshed is a bit broken. And that is the compost bin. I quite like to renovate that corner a little. This is a lovely sort of shaded woodland corner. I've got trees there. These are foxgloves that are coming up. And these sort of self-seeded, and these are the silver dollar plants. I think they're very pretty actually. They're seeding everywhere. And then the lawn needs a little help. I was just getting the grass to grow. My friend put wildflower seeds all over my lawn. So I've swept them to one side, so hopefully I'm going to have a little bit of a wildflower border here. Maybe help that grass a little. And then everything is wild. I'm hoping that if I grow these forget-me-nots by this trellis here, they will stray across the road there and self-seed the back lane. I'll show you the back lane. So, the neighbours have planted a few plants down here. It was beautiful with all the daffodils coming up. I just weeded it and I've thrown some wildflower seeds on there. And hawthorn's just coming out. That's quite nice, but it looks a bit rural.
washed out by the rain. Darling, you've got to keep holding on through the night, 'cause I promise you this: if you try to get some sleep, if you give up the fight, if only just for a bit, there's a new day to leave behind your troubles. There's a new day, and it will set you free.
Okay, so I've left that 10 minutes because I have very little patience. And maybe you can see how the cabbage is starting to sweat. So I'll have a go at mixing that all in, and hopefully we should start creating some brine. Yeah, so the cabbage is starting to get soggy, as you can see. And the thing now is to have a little bit of patience and to do a lot of squeezing it, turning it, mushing it, and just do this repeatedly until you find that there is brine at the bottom of the bowl. So I'm going to mash it and bash it, squeeze it, turn it, really work that salt into it. And again, I've washed my hands before I do this, so I want to keep it all as clean as possible. And yeah, now the cabbage is beginning to get soggy, and this is what we want. So yet again, see the liquid on my hands there. I'm not going to push for this to be finished immediately. I'm going to leave it again for another 20 minutes and come back and repeat. Have a cup of coffee. Oh yeah, and I found something that I can use to weigh the cabbage down. This is just a little glass tea light holder. It's heavy, it'll do the trick, but it's quite small. I can pull it out of the jar quite easily, and I'm going to wash it in boiling water now, and I'll just use that. You're not my cat. Intruder. You see, I put this cat food down for the blackbird. I attract every cat in the village. Yeah. Jack, 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 he's behind you. Jack, he's over there. I think he's outfoxed Jack. Foxglove's just coming out. heat and the sunshine is trying to set off my little water fountain. How relaxing is that? Chico is ignoring all the hygiene rules. Yes, paws off the table. And Rosie has found her food. Haven't you, Rosie? Good girl. Willow, you're just always cute. Now it's starting to create some brine. So this is good. And now I'm going to put my whole body weight into it. This is where you really want to squeeze the cabbage, because there's as much juice as you can get out of here now. The salt is really beginning to work. So I'm going to actually try and squeeze the liquid out of the cabbage at this stage, rather than just mix the salt in. So you really want to work it. Yes, this is the second attempt now. Thump it, work it, crush that cabbage as much as you can. It's reduced rather quite a lot now. It's about half the size it was originally. And it's almost beginning to have enough brine to cover the cabbage at the bottom of the bowl. I'll show you that. So, if you can see, I am starting to get some liquid in this bowl. And I really want to crush that liquid out of it. It's very good for frustration. Squeeze and cabbage. And if I squeeze that down, can you see how the liquid is beginning to cover the cabbage? I've nearly done it enough. So it doesn't take that long, an hour. Depends how much time you've got. But I'm still going to leave it a little bit longer just to get as much juice covering the cabbage in the jar as I can. Definitely beginning to get a lovely brine in there. Yeah, quite happy with that. Yeah, I would say there was enough in there now to put it in a jar. But I think I'll just leave it another 10 minutes. Do it one more time, just to be thorough. And then put it away and cover it up. So, this has been left now for another 10-20 minutes, and I've got a couple of implements. So I've got a weight, nicely cleaned and dried, and I've got a pestle. And if you wanted to really do a good job, you could take a heavy weight like a pestle, and you can really crush the last bit of juice out of the cabbage. And of course, this breaks down the fibres and helps the juice to escape. Now, sauerkraut is a really good source of vitamin C, And the thing about vitamin C is, it's brilliant for your immune system, but most of the ways that we take vitamin C involves an awful lot of sugar. And that gives us a terrible sugar spike. So when you eat sauerkraut, you can boost your immunity with vitamin C without that sugar spike. Now, all of these people who tell you that juicing is great for you are really missing the fact that fibre helps the sugar enter your bloodstream much slower. So you don't get an insulin spike, you don't get a sugar rush. And you really need the fibre to help you digest the fruit. So extracting the juice from the fruit is not ideally the best thing to do. So if you're worried about your vitamin C intake, and it's a great source of antioxidants, then the best thing you can do is make sure you're eating the fibre, but consume something without all that sugar, which is of course cabbage and sauerkraut. So I'm just going to tap that down a little bit more. I really want to take all the juice I can now, because I'm going to pack it into a little sauerkraut pot, or as I've got, a storage jar. I don't want to put the lid completely on the jar because it will create gas and it may create a lot more liquid. So if your jar is full to the brim, I suggest that you stand it in a bowl, because apparently the liquid and the gas rises and it can overflow and spill. I don't think I'm going to have a lot of room at the top of this jar, so I'm not going to worry about that. But I'll leave the jar open so that the gas can escape. So I'll put that in a jar now. And this could be a messy job. So just making sure that that is absolutely, yeah, nice and juicy. So I'm going to start to pack this jar. Shrunk quite a lot, and it was a small cabbage anyway, so I think my jar's quite big for the job I've got in hand, but a little bit of space on top is not a bad thing. And I'm going to crush that down. I'm going to pour this juice on top. What you want is for the brine to entirely cover the cabbage. I'm going to squash that down until the brine is definitely covering all of the cabbage. You can see that, and I can even use this pestle just to make sure that I've packed it down as much as possible. Not pressing too hard because I don't want to break the glass. So then, the last thing to do, I'll just put that away. So then the last thing to do is to weight the cabbage down. So this is where some people use a cabbage leaf. I don't recommend it. The experiment I did, the cabbage leaf went mouldy. You just scrape the little bits of white mould off, throw them away. So what I ended up doing was getting a piece of tin foil, trying to fold it into sort of the right shape, covering the cabbage with that, which is a little easier when it wasn't in a jar. So this will take some negotiating here. Yeah. So that is now pushing all that cabbage down. I'm going to use the weight, put it on top. That's just going to hold that down. And then, there's a little bit exposed there, that will probably grow mould. If it does grow mould, depending on the extent, if it's just a little white spot or two, you can really just scrape that off and throw it away. If it's all gone mouldy, throw the batch away. So that should weigh it down. So I'm going to put the lid on, I'm going to put it in a cool dark place. Depending on the weather, it could ferment very quickly or it can ferment very slowly. And I left it about 2 weeks, and by the end of 2 weeks you could really smell the fermenting that was going on. If you've tried sauerkraut before, then it's got a very distinct smell, and you will know that you've now got sauerkraut and not just cabbage in brine. So there's a particular smell. You can always take the lid off and taste a bit. You can leave it a little bit longer if you want, but about 2 weeks is good enough. Don't forget about it. Leave it. I'm going to leave it in my pantry, somewhere quite dark. Or you could leave it on the kitchen side, but make sure it's not in direct sunlight. And I'm just going to leave it. Some people take the lid off and stir it every now and then, make sure that it's all submerged, but I didn't think that was necessary. And at the end of 2 weeks, I will take out the cabbage and put it into clean sterilised jars. You don't necessarily want the brine, you just want the pickled cabbage. And then you can leave that in your fridge and it will last indefinitely. So that's, depending on how quickly you eat it, and I'll probably eat this quite quickly, you can have fermented food that lasts for years. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this. I do recommend that you try to make some sauerkraut. It's incredibly healthy for you, as fermented food is. I'm just going to scrape down any little bits of cabbage that I've got on the side, because it's these little bits that might actually grow mould. But otherwise that's quite clean. I'm quite happy with that, and I will leave that for 2 weeks. So thank you for watching. It's turned out to be a beautiful evening, so I think I will now go and take a brief walk. I've been waiting for this for weeks. The weather has been terrible. And so let's go and see what's going on in the world. The maythorn is out. We love the maythorn. So thanks for watching. Hope to speak to you next time. Cheers. Bye. I think I'm going to leave the washing up and go out for a walk.